You pressed play on a movie last night. Maybe it was a superhero film. Maybe a cartoon your kid begged for. Maybe something quiet and small. And somewhere in the middle of it, without deciding to, you leaned forward. You cared what happened next. Here's the strange part. You felt that exact pull 1,000 times before, across films that share nothing on the surface. A wizard, a boxer, a fish looking for his son, a farm boy staring at two suns. On paper, they have nothing in common. So why do they all grab the same nerve inside you? You probably think it's the acting, or the music, or good writing, but the real reason is stranger than that. Because it turns out almost every story you have ever loved is secretly the same story. Not similar, the same. The same shape, the same beats, the same hidden skeleton wearing 1,000 different costumes. And you were built to fall for it. Let's back up. In 1949, a scholar named Joseph Campbell published a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Campbell had spent years buried in the myths of the world: Greek gods, Buddhist parables, Native American legends, African folktales. Stories separated by oceans and centuries, told by people who had never heard of each other. And he noticed something that should have been impossible. They were all telling the same story. Not the same characters, not the same setting, but underneath the same pattern, repeating over and over in cultures that had no way to copy one another. Campbell gave that pattern a name. He called it the monomyth. Most people know it by a simpler name now: the hero's journey. Here's how it goes. A person is living an ordinary life. Then something calls them away from it. At first, they don't want to go. They're afraid or they doubt themselves, and they say no. Then a guide appears. A mentor, someone older, wiser, stranger. And the guide pushes them across a threshold, out of the safe world and into an unknown one. Out there, they face trials, they make allies, they make enemies, and eventually they reach the darkest moment, the deepest cave, where they face the thing they were most afraid of. Sometimes they even symbolically die. But they come back, changed, carrying something the ordinary world needed all along. Read that again and watch how many movies light up in your head. The farm boy who doesn't want to leave home until an old hermit hands him his father's weapon. The hobbit who never wanted an adventure. The office worker who swallows a red pill and learns the world was a lie. The young lion who runs from his kingdom and has to return to claim it. Different worlds, same bones, every single time. Now here's the question nobody stops to ask. Why? Why would a fisherman in ancient Greece and a screenwriter in modern Hollywood, thousands of years apart, arrive at the exact same shape? Nobody handed them a template, nobody enforced a rule, and yet the pattern keeps clawing its way back to the surface, generation after generation, like water finding the same crack in the rock. The answer isn't in the stories, the answer is in you, because the hero's journey didn't survive for thousands of years by accident. It survived because it fits the human brain like a key fits a lock. And that's not poetry, that's chemistry. Meet a neuroscientist named Paul Zak. Zak has spent over 2 decades studying what happens inside your skull when a story takes hold of you. His lab is famous for work on a brain chemical called oxytocin. You might know it as the bonding chemical, the one a mother's body floods with when she holds her newborn. It's the molecule of trust, the signal that whispers, this person is safe, connect with them. And Zak discovered something remarkable. Your brain releases that same chemical for people who don't exist. In one of his experiments, Zak had people watch a short film about a father and his young son. The boy is dying. The father is trying to be present for whatever time is left. It's a simple story, but it has a shape, tension, rising stakes, a character to care about. Zak measured the viewer's blood before and after, and the story physically changed their brains. Oxytocin went up, the chemical of real human bonding, triggered by fictional strangers on a screen. And here's the kicker. The more oxytocin a person's brain made, the more generous they became afterward. They gave away more money to real people because of a made-up boy. Your body, it turns out, doesn't fully know the difference between a story and your actual life. Sit with that. The tension you feel when the hero is cornered, that's real cortisol, the stress chemical, moving through you. The relief when they escape, real. The lump in your throat when the mentor dies, real. Your brain isn't watching the story from a safe distance, it's living it. It rehearses the danger and the triumph as though they were yours. But Zak found something even more specific. And this is where it clicks into place. Not every story does this. A flat story, one that just lists events with no rising tension, no arc, does almost nothing to the brain. People tuned out. Their chemistry stayed still. The magic only happened when the story had a shape, a build, a climb toward a crisis and out the other side. Sound familiar? That shape has a name. You already learned it. It's the hero's journey. So now the whole thing turns inside out. We didn't invent the hero's journey and then decide to love it. It's the reverse. Our brains reward that exact shape. So across thousands of years, the stories that happened to have it were the ones that got remembered, retold, and passed on. The ones that didn't fit the shape were forgotten. Storytelling went through a kind of natural selection, and your own neurochemistry was the judge. The hero's journey isn't a formula someone imposed on us. It's the fingerprint of the human mind, pressed into everything we tell. There's a second layer to this, and it goes even deeper into why you can't look away. Researchers Melanie Green and Timothy Brock studied a phenomenon they called narrative transportation. It's that feeling of being pulled inside a story so completely that the room around you fades. You stop noticing the couch, the time, your own hands. And they found that when you're transported like that, something strange happens to your defenses. They drop. When you read facts and arguments, you push back, you scrutinize, you resist. But when you're lost inside a story, you don't argue with it, you absorb it. A transported mind is an open mind. That's why the beliefs a good story plants in you feel less like persuasion and more like memory. This is why every culture that has ever existed wrapped its most important lessons inside stories, never lists. How to be brave, who to trust, what's worth dying for. None of it arrived as a lecture. It arrived as a hero, crossing a threshold, facing the dark, and coming home changed. Because a lecture bounces off the mind, a story sinks in and stays. Which brings us to a name you may know, Christopher Vogler. In the 1980s, Vogler was reading scripts for Hollywood studios, drowning in stacks of them. And he'd read Campbell. So he wrote a short memo, just a few pages, laying out the hero's journey as a practical tool for writers. That memo was never meant to leave the building, but it spread through Hollywood like a secret. It became one of the most influential documents in the history of film, and later a book studied by screenwriters everywhere. Think about what that means. The blueprint Campbell found buried in ancient myth is now, quite literally, the instruction manual behind the blockbusters you buy tickets for. The pattern that lived in firelit caves and temple walls is the same pattern engineered into the movie you're planning to watch this weekend. The costume changed, the skeleton never did. So here's where it lands on you. You are not a neutral observer of stories. You are the reason they take the shape they take. Every time your chest tightened for a character who isn't real, every time you cried at a cartoon, every time you left a theater feeling braver than when you walked in, your brain was doing exactly what it was built to do. Bonding, rehearsing, learning through someone else's journey so you'd be ready for your own. And maybe that's the real reason the hero's journey won't die. Because it was never really about the hero on the screen. It's a mirror. Every one of those stories is quietly asking you the same question the mentor asks. There's a threshold in front of you, a call you've been refusing, a cave you already know you have to walk into. The stories aren't the same by accident. They're the same because they're all, secretly, about you. So the next time you press play and you feel that familiar pull, that lean forward, that caring more than you meant to, remember what's really happening. That's not just a movie working on you. That's 10,000 years of human storytelling and the machinery of your own brain recognizing something true. You didn't fall in love with the same story 1,000 times by chance. You were built for it. And somewhere in all of it, the story was always trying to tell you the same thing. It's your turn to cross. Before you go, if this changed the way you see every movie you'll ever watch, do one small thing. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. So the next time we pull back the curtain on a story you love, you're the first one across the threshold.